R. Kelly used persona to hide crimes in plain sight, prosecutors argue as singer's racketeering trial in New York winds down. New York, the large poster board display propped up in a federal courtroom in New York on Wednesday was reminiscent of something authorities would put together when taking down a mob syndicate. An array of faces depicting the hierarchy of an alleged criminal enterprise. Only in this organization, the boss wasn't some mafia don or cartel leader. It allegedly was R. Kelly. The display, which featured a mug shot of the Chicago-born Randy B. Star Kelly in the center, was a focal point as prosecutors began their closing arguments at Kelly's racketeering trial in Brooklyn, telling the jury the singer for years used his money and public persona to hide his crimes in plain sight. As Assistant U.S. Attorney Elizabeth Geddes walked through the evidence, which included 45 prosecution witnesses over nearly 6 weeks of testimony, the green poster board was kept facing the jury, festooned with photos of Kelly's ever-evolving entourage, including managers, drivers, security guards, runners and others in his orbit. Geddes said that the organization had legitimate goals, mainly to promote Kelly's brand and sell his records. But it also had a dark purpose, to recruit and groom girls, boys, and young women to satisfy his illegal sexual urges, she said. To further that goal, Kelly depended on his team to keep victims in line, the prosecutor said. They helped keep them confined to rooms in his Olympia Fields mansion, handed out copies of Kelly's bizarre rules, carried backpacks filled with iPads Kelly used to film sexual encounters, and even offered condoms to one victim before she went in to see Kelly, Geddes said. The names have changed, but their roles have remained the same since the beginning, Geddes said. For many years, what happened in the defendant's world stayed in the defendant's world. Without his inner circle, Kelly could not have carried the crimes for as long as he did. Over more than 3.5 hours, Geddes methodically reviewed the racketeering charge and many of the 14 underlying criminal acts Kelly is alleged to have committed in furtherance of the conspiracy. She stitched together testimony from alleged victims and other witnesses with corroborating evidence, such as phone records, text messages, and DNA tests to paint a picture of Kelly as controlling and sexually violent predator who, as one former runner testified, operated in sort of a depraved twilight zone. The defendant was more than just a part of an enterprise, he was its leader, Geddes said. As Geddes spoke, Kelly, dressed in a blue suit and wearing thick black eyeglasses and a face mask, looked down at the defense table, occasionally scribbling notes. U.S. District Judge Ann Donnelly broke the trial for the day in the middle of Geddes' argument, which will resume Thursday morning. When she's done, Kelly's defense lawyer Devereaux Cannick will get a chance to address the jury. He's expected to paint Kelly's accusers as liars, motivated by jealousy or profit, and argue that prosecutors have failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that an enterprise existed or that Kelly used it to facilitate any crime. Cannick's argument will be followed by the prosecution's rebuttal, and then jury deliberations. Kelly, 54, was accused in an indictment filed in 2019 with heading a criminal enterprise that employed agents, runners, bodyguards, and others to lure and trap girls and young women to satisfy his sexually predatory desires. He faces decades in prison if convicted of the main racketeering charge, though the jury could decide to convict on lesser charges of kidnapping or human trafficking. Before closing arguments began, Kelly officially confirmed Wednesday that he did not wish to testify in his own defense, a decision that had been widely anticipated as it would have subjected him to an undoubtedly rigorous cross-examination from prosecutors. When Donnelly asked him if he'd had a chance to speak with his attorneys about the decision, Kelly said, "Yes, ma'am, Your Honor." As in most criminal trials, the bulk of the defense's case has come out in cross-examination of prosecution witnesses. Kelly announced his decision after the defense called their fifth and final witness, Julius Darrington, a music consultant for RCA Records who worked on developing a new album with Kelly over several years beginning in 2016. Darrington told the jury he traveled often from Los Angeles to Chicago, where he spent hours with Kelly at his West Side studio. He and Kelly would play basketball in the evenings at a nearby gym before working overnight making music, with Darrington often crashing on a couch in the studio's lounge. Asked on direct examination if he ever saw Kelly's girlfriends locked up in the studio, Darrington replied, "No." "Did you ever hear any women crying?" Kelly attorney Ken Nick asked. Darrington said he did not. Darrington said he would often see Kelly's girlfriends outside the Trump Tower where Kelly lived, coming from various stores and carrying shopping bags. He said he also never heard Kelly striking anyone, either at the studio or on long road trips to performances in cities such as Phoenix or Dallas. On cross-examination, Darrington acknowledged that Kelly had helped him break into the music business and that he considered him a friend. Prosecutors also pointed out that he was based in California and had no idea what Kelly was up to when he wasn't in Chicago. "I assume you were never present when the defendant was engaged in sexual activity?" Assistant U.S. Attorney Nadia Chiata asked. "Correct," Darrington said. "So you have no knowledge of what Kelly did behind closed doors when you weren't there?" Chiata asked. Darrington replied, "Correct." On Tuesday, another former Kelly associate, accountant John Holder, also testified for the defense that he never saw him torment his alleged accusers. Holder described seeing Kelly carrying around a backpack full of cash, proceeds from concerts, to take the women and girls on shopping sprees. On cross-examination, prosecutors displayed for jurors a piece of evidence suggesting Holder's contributions were childlike. A flowchart Holder made of Kelly's business depicting a red cartoon octopus. One of the defense's first witnesses was Larry Hood, a childhood friend who worked security for Kelly as an off-duty Chicago police officer in the early 2000s. He claimed he never witnessed Kelly misbehaving with underage girls. A defense attorney also asked if he saw his friend lock anyone in a room. "No, sir," Hood responded. "If he saw that," he added, "as a police officer, I would have had to take action against that." On cross-examination, Hood admitted the police department fired him in 2007 after a guilty plea in a counterfeit money case, though he got to keep his pension. Meanwhile, in her closing argument Wednesday afternoon, Getty spent nearly an hour dissecting one of the key racketeering acts in the indictment: the alleged bribery of an Illinois public aid official to obtain a phony ID so he could marry Phenom singer Aaliyah in 1994, when she was just 15. Geddes pointed to the reluctant testimony of Kelly's former tour manager, Demetrius Smith, who told the jury near the beginning of the trial that he and Kelly left a tour in Georgia and had flown to O'Hare International Airport for the quick wedding ceremony, which occurred at a Sheraton hotel near the airport with Kelly and Aaliyah wearing matching sweatpants. She cited other testimony that Kelly had decided to marry Aaliyah because he believed he'd impregnated her and wanted legal cover. He also wanted her to have an abortion, Geddes said. "We all know what the defendant was thinking. No baby, no jail," Geddes said. Geddes later reviewed testimony about other victims, including Geronda Pace, the prosecution's first witness in the trial, who testified that she and Kelly had a 6-month sexual relationship in 2009 when she was just 16. Pace had met Kelly months earlier at his first criminal trial in Cook County, where he was acquitted of child pornography charges. Geddes also detailed the testimony from Stephanie, who said she met the singer at a McDonald's in Chicago when she was 16, and that Kelly later videotaped himself having sex with her, as well as that of Sonia, an aspiring radio broadcaster who said she flew to Chicago for an interview with Kelly at his Chicago studio, where instead she was confined to a room for days, drugged, and sexually assaulted. Her big break had turned into her nightmare, Geddes told the jury. The New York case is the first of Kelly's many criminal charges to go to trial. He also faces a case in Chicago's federal courthouse, where prosecutors allege he and 2 others fixed his 2008 trial in Cook County. Kelly was acquitted in that trial, but in 2019 county prosecutors brought 4 new indictments against him, all of which are still pending at Chicago's Layton Criminal Court building. Kelly also faces a solicitation case in state court in Minnesota. Jason